Well, hello everybody. Happy after Christmas. I hope that you guys had an amazing holiday with your family or friends and that you made plenty of memories that you can go back to and just remember and recount for years and years to come. So, you guys, this is the very last Dear Single Woman Conversations, and I'm super excited. So, thank you all for joining us every Tuesday night in the month of December. I've had some amazing guests on, and we've had an amazing conversation. And tonight is going to be no different. Tonight I'm doing solo, but that's okay because it's still going to be a good one. That means it's just going to be a little shorter, right? So today, not today, tonight, I want to share with you all what happens when we are dating from an unhealed place, when we're trying to date somebody from an unhealed place. So one of the things that I have learned. Well, hold, pause. Let me stop. I just act like y'all really know me, right? So, y'all listen. I am Shantae Williams. I am ministry leader of Greater Working Women Ministries and also owner of Relentless Publishing House. And I have been doing these Dear Single Woman conversations every Tuesday night in the month of December, as coming up to the release of my upcoming, long-awaited, long overdue book, Dear Single Woman. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for those of you who are watching this on the replay. So now back to our discussion on today, talking about dating from unhealed places. And so one of the things I have learned from personal experience and from watching others is sometimes we often choose the same type of person, yet they look differently each time, right? Same type of person, but different faces. And one of the things that I've noticed is we choose the same type of person because we have yet to deal with the unhealed places in our heart. Whether it's pain, whether it's trauma, whether it's insecurities, whatever that issue is, right? It could be just doubt that we deserve anything better than what we've had, but we will tend to choose that same type of man, right? That same type of woman if you're a man, because we have not yet gone through the process of healing ourselves from repeating these cycles, right? And so we choose the same person over and over again, yet they have a different face. And what happens is sometimes we intentionally and sometimes unintentionally, we make the other person responsible for the hurt the last person did. I'm going to say that one more time. We can make the current person, right, responsible for the hurt that was left from the last person we dated. And here's a hard pill that I had to swallow that I didn't even realize that I was trying to do this, right? No matter how hurt a person is from previous relationships, you cannot heal them. You will never be able to heal them. That is not your job. I'm going to say it one more time. You are not able to heal somebody from their past hurt from other relationships that have failed. Now, on the flip side of this, I do believe in this wholeheartedly, that you have to consider it, that you have to be mindful of it, right? But it is not your responsibility to heal it. That's not your job. And according to my faith and what I believe, that's God's job. And sometimes, he will heal them in different avenues. It's not going to be the same thing for everybody. And so the more we try to heal people by, loving them past their mistakes, loving them through their pain, and all of that stuff that we say that sounds good, we begin to lose ourselves. And we begin to do things that we normally would not do if we were not dealing with that issue. Does that make sense, y'all? I hope it does. And so we have to understand this. You're not a healer. You can love somebody genuinely, but you're not responsible for healing them. You want to be kind. You want to be considerate. You want to take note of that. And you have to be honest with yourself and saying, can I can I handle? I don't want to say deal. Deal can come off as negative, and I don't want to seem negative, but can I handle? Do I have the capacity, right, to help them through this process? You have to be honest with yourself. It's either yes or it's no. But at the end of the day, you are not a healer. You are not, you don't have the capability of healing somebody. You can help them through their healing journey, but even in that, they have to want you to help them. And even in that, you still have to have boundaries. You can't just let any and everything go because they are hurting, right? Because sometimes people will use their pain as a form of manipulation, as a form to guilt trip you, right? Into doing things that they want, into being somebody that they need, but that's nearly but that's really not what you're are built to do. I guess that's a good way to say it. And so I just want to encourage us, like, before we start jumping in and out of relationships, in and out of dating, take a break and take a moment to really analyze, okay, what went wrong in the last relationship? What part did I play? What part did they play? And what changes do I need to make in me? And we have to be honest with ourselves, what that looks like for us. How somebody makes a change may not be the same way that somebody else makes a change. So it's not comparable, but you definitely want to make sure that you address those inner issues so you're not repeating, you're not in this cycle of dating the same type of person, but yet they look different each and every time. Because it happens. Think about how many people do you know in your circle or in your family, and they keep dating the same type of person with familiar traits, familiar personalities, and they keep getting hurt over and over and over again. It's because they have not dealt with the inner self. And so we have to be careful, because one, we cannot hold somebody else responsible for what somebody else did. Right? Hi, Stephanie. The link isn't working. All right, hold on a second. Let me see here. You guys give me a second. Let me try to get her on. Stephanie, shoot me a Facebook inbox so I can shoot you this link. All right, done. All right. All right, you guys, give me just a second. Let me get one of my guests on here tonight. Technology works when you want it to work. All right, Stephanie, let me know if that works. All right, let me know if that works. Hopefully that works. All right, you guys. So I want us to be honest with ourselves and consider those things, because here's what we don't like to admit. Sometimes the issue is us. Sometimes it's not him, it's us, right? We have sometimes we have these issues, right? Some of us have abandonment issues, we got trust issues, and all of these different things that we have encountered. and then it affects how we date. And when we don't deal with those things, that's what happens. All right. So I'm gonna bring Stephanie in the conversation, and let's try to get a good dialogue going on. All right. Hi,
Hello,
Stephanie.
hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I am mentally prepared to be here, but I've been on a mommy duty. I just came from basketball practice and getting at Burger King and Chick-fil-A, but I'm here.
Listen, I understand. It's that time of year.
Hmm.
It's that time of year. So our topic for discussion on tonight is dating from unhealed places, and how that can cause us to pick the same type of person, yet they look different
Right,
because we have not dealt with the inner me. And we can hold the other person responsible for what the last person did, intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. And I say that because I've seen it done both ways. And so I've tried to be fair in this conversation, because I've seen it done for the male and the female side. But that's our
mm,
topic: is we do this multiple dating from unhealed spaces in our life, and yet we want different results.
right. So I can speak in two different perspectives. One in a way. Let me introduce. My name is Stephanie Thomas. I'm an editor and a publisher, book publisher, The Right Edits LLC, and a mom, of course. So I'm going through this right now as we speak. I am a single mother of three. I've been single for a year now, and I'm healing. So I'm going to speak from a spiritual perspective as well as a rational, logical perspective. I'll start with spiritual. It's all spiritual, all of it. So February 22nd will make it a year that I completely surrendered my life to Christ. I say, you are my husband, you my man, we in this for life. Okay. It'll make it a year. And the research that I've been doing is that we attract the spirits that are in us. Even if we don't think we're narcissists, if we don't think we're controlling, even though that falls under that, if you attract somebody that's like that, there's a possibility that spirit in you attracted that same person. So I realized that I had a lot of things going on inside of me, and it was making me attract people with these poor spirits, these bad spirits. Not necessarily they're a bad person. They're
Right.
not really no bad people. It's just that there is something operating within them that is making their actions not be so good. That's where
Mm-hmm.
we get into that part where I know what type of person he is. I see his potential. And that's where we get into that. Because there are really no bad people. It's just that there's something inside of them that is making these bad actions. So that's the spiritual part of it. Because I'm there. I'm there right now. I call myself dating back in October. We talked for a while in September, and then we were dating in October, and everything crumbled in November, and now we're in December. And what it was is that I caught myself dating someone with a spirit that I found in myself, and I had to
Mm.
deliver myself. I had to seek deliverance from it. And after that, I didn't that person is no longer attractive to me. Everything that I liked about them just it just melted away because I've been able to read my Bible and be discerning, and no, it's Christ. It's all about spiritual. Now, I'm going to speak from the rational part because as women, we know we get emotional. We're very emotional, and sometimes we don't think clearly. Okay, as I told you before, I'm an editor, right? And I'm editing a book titled Rational Love. from a social worker, like social worker counselor. He is he doesn't live in the US. He's out of the US, but he's phenomenal. So in this book, Rational Love, he takes us on a journey, step by step, on how to love rationally. Get out of your feelings and think about what you're doing cognitively. And the first chapter is about the self. The first chapter and the longest chapter is dedicated completely to self. That's the healing. If you don't know yourself, if you don't heal yourself, if you can't pick the ugly parts of yourself and show them to the person that you want to be with as soon as you walk through the door, then you're not ready to date. And that's what the book is. That's why I love being an editor, because I get all the tea. The book is phenomenal. And look, as soon as it's ready, as soon as I hit publish, everyone should get that book. Rational Love. It starts with self. It starts with the self. And I can say that I am a healed and whole woman. And I have no desire right now to be in a relationship. I don't. I found my companionship in the Lord, first and foremost. And I'm just so content and comfortable with myself. Learning things. I'm 33 right now, even though I'm still considered young. But I'm 33 right now and I'm still learning things about myself. You know, people post on the internet like what are your favorite things to do? What is your ideal date? And I can't answer some of this stuff because I don't know. So I'm pretty sure there are other women in my boat where you don't know what your favorite thing is. You don't know how you truly want to be loved and like to be loved because you haven't done it for yourself yet. You haven't done that same love to yourself. So how you gonna expect somebody else to figure out how to do it?
That's good. And I talk about that in my book. And there's actually the last chapter in my book is the power of knowing your purpose. Because one of the things that causes us um, to choose wrong is because we don't know who we are. You know, we see all of these pretty pictures on social media and we see people who we think are living a life that we want to live, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to live the life that you want. But here's one thing that I've learned through personal experiences and just having a bird's eye view in others is that when you don't know self, when you don't know your purpose in life, when you don't know who you are above the surface, like we all know surface stuff, favorite color, favorite movie, favorite food, that stuff is, you know, that's just here and there. I'm talking about deep down inside. When everything else is gone, when the mask is gone, when the makeup is gone, right? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
If the person you're dating now had to make a life and death decision over you, would you be comfortable? And if you have children, would you be comfortable with them making that decision for you? And see, we don't consider those things because we want this Cinderella story,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want the fairy tale and we want the romance. And I get it, y'all, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting all of that stuff at all. But let's talk about reality. Like, sis, who are you? Like, brother, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you really want in life? What are those things that you're afraid to talk about because you assume it's never going to happen? Because if he doesn't match your purpose, you guys are not going to be compatible. There's always going to be a tug of war. Either you're going to go his way or you're going to keep trying to pull him your way, and you guys are going to be frustrated with each other because you don't match.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important that we take that time to discover who we are. Go on vacation by yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. It's
Mm-hmm.
peaceful. I never thought it would be peaceful. Oh my gosh, I love it. Now listen, I don't want to stay that way. However, When I realized, I ain't got to check in for nobody. I can go where I want to go. Woo. Now but hey, but we really do, and so I think we choose the same type of person with similar traits, different faces, is because one, we don't know who we are. We have not addressed the inner me. You know, when you look in the mirror, you get what
Right.
you get. You take the eyelashes off, you take the wig off, you take the weave off, you take everything off, right? Who are you? Like, do you like that person that looks you back in the mirror? And a lot
Mhm.
of times we don't love ourselves enough to really go after what we want. And for women,
Yeah.
we have this thing that we're trying to beat this biological clock. We're tired of hearing families say, "Girl, you ain't married yet. What you waiting on?" And that's pressure. That
Mhm.
pressure, and it causes you to kind of overlook some stuff because the family said, "Oh, he's good," and mm-mm. But if there's something that you like, you need to go with that something. I'm not saying that
Mhm.
all the time that something is 100% accurate. Some of that could be fear. Some of that could be, well, is he going to hurt me like the last one did? You know what I'm saying? But you have to take your time and you have to deal with that inner me so that you're not in this ever cycle of nothing going nowhere because
Mhm.
you're dating the same type of person, just different faces.
Yeah, I will say this just to speak on, go back to that on a more personal note. I was dating the same type of people because of an insecurity of mine. And like, I will say this. I'm like from should you say the hood, or from the hood, I guess. But you can't really tell. I always stayed in the house. I was a kid. I was like, I didn't know they had a sister because I stayed in the house all the time. So if you were to look at my kids' fathers, you would say, how did you end up with him? Because there
Mhm.
was a level of comfort there for me. It
Yeah.
felt like home. And the comfort coddled a insecurity of mine of, well, this is where I'm from.
Yep.
And if I am ever in a different environment, I may feel out of place.
Mm-hmm.
I've dated a guy whose parents, both of them have matching Benzes. The good towels were the towels that you actually used. And it was a culture shock to me that people could be raised and brought up that way. I
Mm-hmm.
cried the first night that I was introduced to his parents, and I stayed there at his home. Everything is white in the guest bedroom. I cried. I cried like a little bitty baby because it was a culture shock to me. I had never experienced that. But my demeanor, the way that I carry myself says that. It says that. It says I have everything. It says I'm wealthy. I'm very wealthy. I may not be rich with riches, with like money, but I am wealthy. I'm very wealthy. And I carry myself like wealth. But I was attracted to, oh, we getting it out the mud. We getting it out the gutter. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But if you stay down with me, we can get to it. That.
Yes, I get it. I get it. And Tiffany said it. She said, sometimes we accept what we feel we deserve,
Mm-hmm.
or we try to fill a void, for the women that have daddy issues whose father wasn't in their life, or maybe he was and he left. A man will never fill a father's role.
Mm-hmm.
They're not built for that. They can, and when you treat them as your father, you want them to give you that security, that the love of a father, then what you're doing is in your mind, right? And this is going to sound weird, but this is the only way that I can say this and people will get it. In your mind, you're creating incest
Mm.
because you want to love a man, but you also want him to love you like your father. He's not your father. He will never be able to fill that void. Now, if he's thinking about, being with you long term, does he have to consider those things? Like I said this earlier, we have to consider, right, the voids in other people's life, the issues, that trauma, that pain, but we are not their healer. And that's one
Right.
of those hard conversations that we don't have with one another, that we have to have. Listen, I know you and your mother don't have a great relationship, but I'm not her. I can't replace her. I can't love you the way that she was supposed to love you. I can't do for you what she should have done. And if,
Mhm.
if you're going to hold me to that standard, this is not going to work. But instead, because we're emotional and we've gotten our feelings all tied up and we feel some type of way, we walk on these eggshells and trying to thinking that we can heal them in that area, and then the relationship is going to be fine. And
Mhm.
it's not, because you're not their healer. That's not your job.
Mm-mm.
And when we start operating outside of our lane, is when we start clashing and there's issues and you're stressed and you're burdened and you start feeling like nothing you ever do is going to be right. Well, guess what? It's not, because you're not operating in that lane that you're supposed to be in. You're trying to play two people and you're one person.
Mhm.
But that's a conversation we don't have.
Right.
Why? Because we don't want to be alone. So we settle and we say, well, if I can just, whenever you use the word just, it's already bad.
Right.
I'm
And see,
learning that.
loneliness is a feeling, and
It's how to
feelings
say,
are fickle. Feelings go away.
hello.
Loneliness, it doesn't last. Loneliness does not last. It's just a feeling. That's
It
all.
is. What happens is what we see every day intensifies that feeling, right? Let's be honest, it intensifies. If I look around, everybody else is booed up and I'm not, I gotta hurry up so I can be booed up too.
Oh yeah, because these Christmas pajamas, all these couples in these pajamas, I was like,
Listen, they was
oh,
beautiful, right? It's like, oh
yes,
my God. Listen, you already looking through your old exes, talking about which one can I be booed up by February. Let it go.
look,
Let
I
it
just
go.
hard. I said, look, I'm just gonna live vicariously through y'all. Okay. But yes, I understand because I felt it. I felt in around this time, not just with relationships, just in general, the spirit of loneliness is heavy. The
It is.
spirit of just being without is heavy in grief, especially when you don't have those relatives around. And what people don't, what people fail to realize is that losing a relationship, even if the person is alive, still causes grief. It's
Mm-hmm.
still a loss. It's still the absence of something. So a lot of people are grieving around this time of year,
It
which is
is.
understandable. It's
It is.
understandable, but it it goes away. It goes away.
It does.
You have to heal. You have to move forward.
It does. I'm going to bring Joy into the conversation. Pink Girl Teaches. Hey, Joy. Let me see if I can change this. I don't
Oh,
like the way that is. Okay, I like this better. Um, oh, God. So, Joy, this is your area, right? So, Joy, introduce yourself.
hi everybody. I'm Joy, and I'm the founder of Pink Girl Teaches. So I am a certified life coach, but my area of focus is for victims of narcissistic abuse. So no, I don't work with the narcissists themselves, but I work with the people that they torment. Those that come out trying to figure out, well, who am I after everything that I have been through? Because it's just like a huge fog. People come out in fear, with the out of the fog, fear, obligation, and guilt, just trying to figure out what happened to me, and that's where I come in to help them find themselves.
Yes, so we are on this discussion of, and this is part of your area of expertise, dating from unhealed places.
Don't do it.
How some and how sometimes we can choose the same type of person but different faces because we haven't dealt with the inner me.
Okay. You said you haven't dealt with the inner me, right? And that's the thing. A lot of times when people do end up with the same type of person, what this person actually appeals to is the inner child. And the inner child has those unmet needs that would be, that really a lot of times are as a result of abandonment issues or rejection issues in childhood. And it's interesting that you gravitate towards somebody, or that person actually appeals to you and you appeal to them, because you kind of give each other the same thing. So that's that toxic codependent dance, right? But what happens is that you actually are attracted to the same type of person that you need to heal from. And until you heal, because it becomes comfortable, and I think a lot of people do it subconsciously, like thinking, well, my dad wasn't around, so if I get with this guy, maybe he can fill that void. But you end up picking the same type of person, like the one who abandoned you anyway. Or if it's a mother wound, it's the same type of thing. You're looking for somebody to validate you, to see you, to hear you, to help you figure things out. But it never comes from anybody else. That's one of those things that's already on the inside of you, and you just have to begin the process of working through those issues. And then the question becomes, well, what are these issues that I need to work through? Well, self-validation, building self-trust, boundaries, and stop people pleasing, self-love. Those are some areas that you can start, if you're somebody who continues to attract the same type of person, because you're always going to get the same type of result, always. You know.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we think that we can change people, right? And I said earlier that, it's not our responsibility to heal people. We have to consider their pain, their trauma, and their past experiences, but we have to remember we are not their healer. And that was a hard lesson that I learned. And I didn't even realize that I was doing it until I looked hindsight and I was like, oh my gosh, I was
Mhm.
loving this person and trying to heal them and what they didn't get from their mama. Right? Because I'm a mama, so I know how to love on a baby. You know what I'm saying? And that's what happens. Us mamas, we know what kids need, right? And so we see that inner child that is screaming, help, love me, and our hearts go out. But guess what? You can't be a mama and a girlfriend.
You really can. And then also, then the question becomes, are you even qualified to be a therapist? Like, did you finish healing you? Did you finish taking care of you, that you're taking on this added responsibility? And while you're healing them, who's taking care of you?
Nobody.
And then that's one of those things that frustrates people, is because then your inner child begins to scream out like, I'm not being seen, my needs are not being heard, or they're not being met, and I'm feeling invisible. And these are some of the things that trigger people, that they don't even know why they just lash out and act simple and crazy in these relationships, because you're triggering the inner child.
Mm.
Then you need to sit down with the inner child and begin to reassure her that, girl, listen, I got you. It's going to be good. We're not going to pay him any mind. You have my full attention. Because that's what she didn't get when she was young.
That goes back to something that Stephanie shared moments ago about her story of dating a guy whose parents were well off, and and she lived a total opposite life, and she cried, and it's like that's like one of those movie scenes, and in your mind you're like, girl, wake up, you got it made, but you don't understand the turmoil that's going on the inside because you don't think that you deserve it you
And
know
this is where we see now self sabotage sets in, right? You're right at the cusp of something good, and then you back out because I don't deserve this. Well, now I finally got all eyes on me because I'm about to make this breakthrough right here. And so now I am going to be seen and I am going to be heard, but you don't trust yourself. So it's easier to just, fall back into the old way of doing things.
Right. I see it as, I have a book where it's called The Three Patterns of um, Empowerment. And this stage that a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of people in general are stuck in, I see it as the survival stage. Like you say, it's that child needing that saving, that protecting. And when you think about a survivor, or how I describe it in the book, it's it's the very primal portion of humanity. It's the uncivilized part where you will fight to get what you want, like fighting over a piece of meat, like arguing and like fighting in a relationship. So, and this is just me, this is the self-evaluation that I get to have this terminology and to speak this. It's, I was stuck in the cycles, same cycles over and over again, and being so happy when I get out of it, getting the same relationship over and over again. Oh, girl, I survived that finally. But do it right again, right again, right. Do it, get back in the same cycle. But you real exciting when you get back out. Oh yeah, I'm gonna glow up now. And then you get back in the same relationship over and over again. I identify that as the survivor stage, as a survivor. And for me, the next stage of that is the maintainer. And as the maintainer, you learn to maintain yourself. This is when you're learning yourself. You're getting your routines together. You're not living life on the wild side as much. You start the routines, you get your self-care in. You might even talk to a therapist once or twice, and you start learning little things about yourself. But your life becomes a routine. But you get bored and you want somebody. But there's just one thing that's still surviving in you, and that's that relationship aspect. And you pick the same person again, and that same person pulls you back to survival mode, messes up your credit, wrecks your car, almost gets you evicted, no food in the house, and you built yourself up. You've been maintaining, but it's that one little aspect of life that you have not fixed yet, and you pull right back in. And this is what I have experienced through life. Like I said, it does, like you said, Joy, it is something in childhood. And um, you said something earlier about, fathers either not being there. I'm so, if I would have paid attention to what my daddy was doing for me, I think I would have picked some better choices in men. Like, I didn't live with my dad. My dad did a phenomenal job raising me through a phone, technology. I saw him on the weekends. He was a great dad. Awesome. Spoiled me, still spoils me. When I got my nails done a couple of months ago. My dad, I'm 33. But I didn't live in a house with him. This is why fathers are so important for daughters. I didn't live in a house with him. I didn't know him as a man. I wasn't able to grow with him as a growing daughter, because a lot of parents, you mirror your parents. You learn from your parents. And when he was out of the household, I actually lost a piece of me, a piece of my identity, a piece of myself. So this is what I've learned over the couple of years from just reflecting and wanting to transform my mind and heal. So, and this is what I want to push out to other women out there that may be in the same situation where you had a dad. He probably didn't grow up in the household with you, but that's what you're missing. You're missing your dad. He wasn't there physically. And so you thought it was okay that weekends visits were okay, phone calls were okay, but it actually wasn't. He needed to be in the household for you to really learn yourself, so that as an adult, you won't be in this survival mode like this. You won't be missing these. I read a book, 5 Keys to Mindful Loving, affection, acceptance, um, appreciation, allowing, and there's another one. There's another A, but it's the 5 A's. So some kids aren't appreciated growing up. So like Joy said, they want somebody that's going to show them appreciation. They might be getting beat on, but they might get appreciated right behind that, and they was missing that as a child. Then we have the allowing. This is where we are with someone that allows us to be who we are. It may have that allowing may be something dangerous though. We may be allowed to do drugs. We may be allowed to drink, but it's who we are. And they're allowing us to do that. Then it's the acceptance, being accepted. And then it's the affection. Forgot about the affection. Physical affection. And affirmations. There we go. I think that's all of them. But the book is called The 5 Keys to Mindful Loving, How to Be an Adult in a Relationship. I read that book a couple of years ago as, like I said, I was transforming myself and healing from the things that I saw from myself. So y'all are the coaches to me right now. I'm the panelist that is going through this right now. And I'm the spokeswoman for all the women out here that are keep picking the same men that are no good. Okay. But that's just how I've embodied everything that I've been through. I read that book. I read some other books. Like I said, I'm an editor. I've been editing a book called Rational Love. It's phenomenal. And I've just embodied my growth in 3 different ways: being a survivor, going through those cycles, transforming into a maintainer where I've developed my routines and what I like to do to build myself up. And now, oh, baby, I'm thriving, okay? I'm full thriver out here. Like I said, I am wealthy. I'm full of wealth. It may not be in the bank yet, but I am wealthy from just learning and growing and meeting women like you where I'm learning. So now I want to pass it back so that I can learn some more because I'm learning some stuff on here.
I think that is really good. And I'm just sitting here thinking, and Joy, you can probably answer this. What what are some, we talked about a few of the things that causes men and women to choose that same person, just different faces. And so what do they have to do to get out of that cycle?
What do they have to do to get out of that cycle? The first one is you've got to heal. You've really got to heal. You got to detox, actually. You got to come out of, you've got to ask yourself, like, why am I choosing the same person? What is it about this type of person? What are they providing? A lot of times it's going to come down to that, to the abandonment and the rejection. Those are the key things. That's what I've seen, at least, countless times, over and over again. So it's going to mean you need to heal the wounds of abandonment and rejection, right? And then you also have to stop actually forming these attachments quickly, because let's be honest, when he comes along and he smells good, he looks good, he's giving the vibe that you like, right? We all have our vibe, but he's giving it. It's giving. And before you know it, in our minds, we're wedding dress shopping. The bridal party is already together. And finally, it's happening to me. And so somebody sees me, and look at him, he's amazing. But we got to stop, forming these attachments prematurely. We didn't even qualify him. A lot of times we start asking ourselves, am I even worthy of this man? Look at everything about him. We didn't put him on a pedestal. And then in the end, we're going to find out that they didn't even belong there. But if we would just slow down and begin to actually qualify this person and say, well, what is it about him that I even like? And who is he? Like, And here's the thing, a lot of these men, they tell us up front who they are. Our problem is that we want to hear what we want to hear. Oh, you're not ready for a relationship right now? Bet. Let me stay here, give you all the benefits of this relationship so you can get a little a taste of what I have to offer, so that when you're ready for a relationship, we can just roll right into it. But then what happens is when he's ready, he's not choosing you and he's married in 6 months. And then it's like, what? So, it's really going to be also having boundaries, right? And the thing about these boundaries, right, it's important that you have boundaries, yes, for how other people or what you accept or tolerate from other people. But what about the personal boundaries? The ones that say, you know what? I am not going to do this. I'm not going to be intimate with anybody. In fact, you know what? I don't even want a phone call after 10 p.m. because it's my personal time. But here he comes 10:05. And now you're answering the phone, but you are the one who is supposed to honor the boundary, not him. The onus on honoring boundaries always falls on us. It never falls on other people. And so you have to be ready with your personal boundaries and be accountable to them. You have to be accountable to them. And then you also just have to be willing to sit through the season, because a lot of times these things, they didn't form overnight. Look at how old we are. You've been living with these things for decades. So it's not going to fall off in 5 months, in 10 months. It's not going to fall off in a year even, because it is a process. And, it doesn't mean that you're journeying towards a place called healed so that you can start to date. But no, you got to become more self-aware. You got to know what your triggers are. Quick story. I had put a boundary with a friend of mine, right? And he has continually been crossing this boundary, like, dude. And this is like my friend for my whole life. And he kept on. And so today I was just so triggered. I was just ready to pop off on somebody. And then I was like, hold up, sis, pull back. Why are you so angry? And then I was like, oh, because he keeps violating the boundary. But, the boundary is simply that I said, you know what? I think our friendship has come to an end because, there's too many differences here. So for me, there's no point in continuing this friendship. Like, go on and live the rest of your life. You have your family. And it's all love. There's no bitterness here, but it's just come to its end. But he found ways to break the no contact, to start calling, to start emailing. And I was like, we already told you. And so, I realized that, oh, this is a trigger. This is why you're like this. And so once I was able to identify it as a trigger for me, then I can relax, because my world is not falling apart and I'm not losing my marbles. Because a lot of times when people find that they are being triggered, then it feels like, well, maybe I'm not as healed as I thought that I was. Or maybe, no, you're just becoming self-aware. But when you can identify the trigger, then you can see, okay, what action do I need to take now that I am aware? And then, you take the action. And a lot of times it also involves self-soothing. I think that's so important. We have these roles that we play. And here's one thing, is like, I think you have to be able to ask yourself and answer the question, who am I? And this is who am I, not the mom, not the boss babe, not the entrepreneur. Who am I? And it's crazy that women don't know how to answer this question. Don't know how to answer, who am I? But these are things that, you need to start figuring out. Who am I without the titles and the roles? Who am I? What do I like? What does self-care mean for me? Because trust you me, it's not about the spa dates. It's not about the shopping trips. It's not about the brunch. All of those things are wonderful. But self-care can look like this. Give me a second. Self-care for me, it looked like this. So when my little girl is triggered, I bring the books out and I begin to color, because it just is soothing. So you've got to find that thing, Sometimes it's, I don't want to say like, to disassociate, but you got to pull back so that you can just, allow yourself to process things. And I think we also have to allow ourselves some grace, because what happens is a lot of times is that it's that inner child who is making these relationship choices, because a lot of things about our development and our growth is stunted, like as far as emotions and rational, or our ability to rationalize, that becomes stunted at trauma points. And when you think about your trauma points, consider like that, especially in childhood, as a foundation that is cracked. That's what we have to go back and repair. That's what we have to go back and repair, because how are you going to build anything sustainable on a destroyed or a broken foundation? It's whatever structure you put there is not going to stand. It is always going to have the same result. So you got to be willing to pull back and repair the foundation. And that foundational work is ground zero work. It's hard. It requires commitment. You have to be intentional. You can't be everywhere. It's not about now being an overlapper, going from this one to that, because you know what, it hurts. And you know what, I'm not actually getting into a relationship with them, but I'm just getting company. It's intimacy. No, sex is not intimacy. It's just sex. Intimacy starts outside the bedroom, so that's not intimacy. It's the desire for a connection. And if we look at some of these relationships, you'll find that it wasn't about love, because a lot of times when there is trauma, you're not falling in love with anybody. You're forming a trauma bond, and that's what it is. And so when we sit back and be like, yo, so these relationships, was there any love here anyway? Because that inner child is the one who made those decisions. And so when we look back and we say, if unless I heal, that person is going to continue to make the decisions, because what the other person is going to appeal to you, or the things about the other person that will appeal to you, will appeal to the child. I bet you, if we can be honest with ourselves, right, we have all met some amazing men that if we were in our right mind, we should have been married to them, but no, we had to let them go. We had to let them go. And I think this also may apply to some degree about those that like the bad boy. I want to ride or die with him. Sis, where are we riding to? Who got to die? Why? I'm trying to live and thrive, trying to live long, but you want to ride and die. Mm-mm. We saw how Thelma and Louise ended, Bunny and Clyde. That's not for us. That's not for us. But when the child heals, then this is where people always talk about, well, where do I get my standards from? Heal your inner child. Because as you heal, you discover your authentic identity. And as you find that identity, you find your voice. But not only that, your standards change. So even these tables that they want you to say, well, what are you're not going to entertain that, because you already recognize that, listen, I'm healed. I'm not auditioning for love here. I'm not auditioning for your acceptance. I accept me, and I'm enough without you. And then you make wise choices, even with how you respect your body, because now there's a level of self-love that doesn't come from outside, because guess what? I validate myself now, and I trust myself. When we have these childhood traumas, right? Either a mother or a father issue, what happens is the child wants to be seen and heard. And this is where the self-validation comes from. So if you're going to the parent, right, and you're saying, hey, this, oh, whatever, and they just pushing you aside, and then that child never learns how to trust themselves. So guess what comes from this? We have people who don't trust themselves, so they can never make a decision. This is where a lot of procrastinators come from, because they don't trust themselves with the decisions that are ahead of them. They know what they want, but it's just like, hey, what do you think? All right, you give them, you go there for somebody's opinion, then you're here for another person's opinion. Now you're here, and after you've gathered the opinions of the whole community, time has gone by, and it's all because you didn't trust yourself, because you didn't receive it in childhood. But the gift is that you don't need that. There's no closure with sitting down with mom and dad and telling them, well, no, this is the gift you give yourself. You don't need anybody's permission to heal. You don't have to explain your healing journey to anybody. In fact, they're not going to like it. A lot of times people will gaslight you, because they become so comfortable with who you've been all these years. And so now, why are you trying to flip the script here? Who gave you permission to change? What makes you think you're so special? And so this is why when we're healing, we don't need to make all these announcements, new year, new me, and all. Just be. Just be. Flowers never announce that they're blooming, they just bloom. And that's what we have to do.
I love it. You said some things that really stuck out for me. Is one that we don't qualify these people, because if we did, we'd realize it's the same person on the chipping block, and we'd be like, nope, next. And then we're not honest with what triggers us. You know, we overlook our own triggers because of that loneliness we're trying to feel, that void we're trying to feel. We're trying to have our picture perfect IG post. We want to post our, relationship status so everybody knows I'm booed up. And none of that really matters, because at the end of the day, those people don't care whether you booed up or not, you know? And then we don't give ourselves grace. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it again. How could I be so dumb and so stupid? Yo, you're human. We're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna mess up, but you are human. And so I think if we would be more diligent in doing those three things, right? And sometimes you can't qualify somebody by yourself. Sometimes you got to have that inner circle, that healed inner circle. Like you can't ask the woman who always has something negative to say. Like, don't ask her. You know what I'm saying? She's always bitter about something. She's always complaining about her man. Look, don't ask her. Okay? Negative Nancy, leave them alone. You need to ask some healed women, y'all, what do y'all think? Right? And so you take in their opinions, but you don't allow their opinions to drive you. Because you're still an individual. And sometimes good people can have an opinion about something, and it still doesn't mean it's the opinion that you're supposed to live by. Because we give opinions out of relationships. We give opinions out of our own emotions. And sometimes good people can misjudge people. But you still want to make sure that if you know that you have a history of picking wrong, that you get help in qualifying these prospects. Like, don't be out here trying to solo it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's okay to say I need help. Like, I just want to make sure. Do you see this? Like, I just want to make sure I don't repeat myself. Like, it's okay to say I need help. Like, there's nothing embarrassing. There's nothing degrading. There's nothing that says you are less of a human being when you be like, yo, I met this dude. Y'all know he fine. He look good. He smell good. But I need y'all to help me qualify him. Right? So maybe y'all are at the park and you be like, hey, y'all just come by. Don't speak, and then just, just kind of observe our interaction and tell me what do you see? Sometimes we need help. We can't do it by ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there was something else you had just said, and in my talking, I think I lost my train of thought. But one of the things that I have noticed is sometimes, how can I say this? Sometimes you can be the type of person that just wants to see other people happy. And sometimes you take that in the wrong perspective when you're dating, and you want them happy over your happiness. And that sometimes can cause you to belittle your own happiness. Because again, you're trying to be their healer. And you cannot. And so once we are healed, here's my thought. Sometimes how we would have chose 3 months ago is not how we would choose today. Because we no longer have that same mind of thinking. Does that make sense? And so because I've healed that place in me, it's like, hold up. And it's like you said this, Stephanie, you're no longer attracted to that dysfunctional spirit because you realize that really ain't attractive. And when you realize that you were attracted, you'd be like, yo, you was really dumb for that. Now you can say that. Right? You had a dumb season or a dumb moment, but you're not dumb, right? There's a difference. Because I've done it. I'd be like, girl, you was tripping in that season, huh? I'm so glad we learned how to walk straight. And so we have to, and that's where that grace comes in. That when we change, it could be that there's healing taking place. And so it doesn't mean that you think you're better, you're becoming better. There's a difference. There's a difference in me being conceited and me being confident. Right now that I'm healed, I'm confident, and I realize that I deserve better, and I don't have to choose less than what I want because I realize I'm worthy of the desires that are in my heart. Because it's not unrealistic. It may be unrealistic to you because you don't want to do it. And sometimes I've heard that it's been said to me that what you want really ain't gonna happen. Like that's just not how it is now. But what I realized is what he was saying was, I'm not gonna do all that. So either you take me as it is or I'm out. Oh well, I don't, okay. And then we start changing who we are and what we desire because what we don't want to be alone. And then we're in this cycle again and we're trying to figure out what's wrong. I can't understand why I can't get in a successful relationship because you keep belittling yourself for these people who don't care enough about you to either level up or just leave. And if they want to leave, let them leave. Like, why we try to stop people from leaving? Like, there's a blessing in the let go. I have learned there is a blessing when they say deuces. You need to say double deuces because they just saved you some heartache, some sleepless nights, a wet pillow. Right now, I know y'all men ain't doing all that, but that's what we do. Okay, so I have accepted that when people want to exit, I'm gonna open the door. Like I'm no longer going to try to convince you to stay. Because if I'm not valuable enough for you to stay, then I want you to go where you feel there's value. And I'm okay that it's not me. I think sometimes we're offended and we're hurt. And so we try to prove that we are worthy of that person staying. When in essence, they're trying to give you the exit, right? And you trying to hold, it's like a tug of war. And it's like, yo, just let them go. Maybe they need to go grow up and mature. And when they do, maybe you're available, maybe you're not. But I love it. This is a great conversation, and I hope that it has been helpful to all of those who are listening, especially to those of you who are watching the replay. And we're talking about dating from unhealed places and how that can cause us to be in this cycle that it's like a hamster on a wheel. You're running, but you're not going anywhere. You're going through the motions. You may be saying the right things. You may even been doing the right things, but you're still not going anywhere. You're not making any progress. You're just stuck. And so I want to encourage all of us to self-reflect. As we're ending 2022, let's do some self-reflection and say, hey, what do you really want when it comes to relationships? Like, be honest. Like, write down everything that you really want. Write down stuff that is like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this. Like, be honest with whatever those boundaries are for you. And that's another thing that I had to learn, Joy, was in setting boundaries that they were for me. Like, setting a boundary, because I can't control what they do. I can only control what I do. So if I set a boundary, I have to respect the boundary that I make. Because if I'm upset that the boundary is broken, I have to ask myself, why did I allow the boundary to be broken? Because it's my fault.
And that is a hard place to be in.
Yes, let me tell you something. Yes, ma'am, it is.
We're going to pretend that Joy is my coach, okay? And everything that she said do to get to that healing process, to even start it, I've done. I've stripped myself of all the titles. I'm certified life coach, teacher, mother, editor. Like, I have so many titles, but it wasn't until I stripped myself of everything that I was able to heal myself. I stripped myself down to woman. And I learned that I was not even a woman. I wasn't even, I was an adult. Because when we reach a certain age, we identify as an adult, but I wasn't grown and I
Mm.
wasn't a woman. I was an adult. And this is me as a mother, but I have that title. So one thing I like to say, or one thing I recently that dropped in my spirit maybe a couple of months ago, I became a mother before I became a woman. I was pushed into motherhood before I could embrace womanhood. So I want everybody to, especially young mothers, just dwell on that a little bit. You weren't able to really learn. I wasn't able to learn myself before I had to learn a whole nother human being.
That
I
part.
had to put myself on the back burner in order to be as whole as possible for this other human. And I have three now: 11, 8, and 1. And it wasn't until my 1 year old that I ended that relationship with her father. Like, it happened February 12th, 2022. I was on autopilot. We call it autopilot. I have a girlfriend. We call it autopilot, to where you don't know what's going on around you, but you're on autopilot, and you know what you go to work, you take care of the kids, you cook, you clean. You go to work, you take care of the kids, you cook, the clean. Some things may get cleaned, other things something, but most of the time the house may get a little dirty when you on autopilot. I was on autopilot for 2 weeks, and like I said, February 22nd is when I woke up and I realized I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. How did I get here? And you know what? When they say, "Well, what did he do to you? What made you put him out? What made the relationship end?" I said it was me. They said, "Huh?" I said it was me. I said I wasn't honest in the relationship. What do you mean? My priorities wasn't aligned in the correct way. The first thing that I had on my list was love, and he gave that. He loved me. He actually met me in a very, very dark place, and he did that. He loved me out of my dark place. And he taught me some things. He taught me how to relax, how to watch a movie, because I don't watch movies. But when I grew from that, when I was healing, because when he was pouring into me, but I couldn't pour into him, my priorities switched. And now I needed stability. But that's not why we started the relationship. Love was number one, and friendship, and intimacy. Stability was never on the list, but I put it as number one 6, 7 months, 8 months in, and now he's like, "I'm not enough for you." Yes, you are. No, I'm not. I can't give you what you want. Yes, you can. I love you. No, I don't think, and like you said, men tell you what it is. They face value. They give you that face value. He told me, I'm not, I can't give you what you want. I said, but you were just giving me what I want, when we first met. But I didn't realize that I had switched up my priorities on him. I didn't know what it was until after the relationship ended. So I sat down, and that's when I said, well, what are my priorities as a grown woman with no kids? What do I need as a woman? Then, okay, well, what do my kids need? What do I need as a mother? And I had to completely prioritize my life. And I realized that I never changed my priorities from when I first had my daughter at the age of 21. I had the same priorities before my daughter was born, May 16, 2011. I had the same priorities for 10 or 11 years. Love, a friendship, and intimacy for 11 years. What am I gonna do with that? I had to tell myself, well, Stephanie, what are you gonna do with that? I had to sing a song. What's love got to do with it. I had to really be real with myself. And I had to, anybody that come, well, what happened? It was me. What happened to your relationship, other relationship? It was me. My priorities were not in line. And then during the relationship, when those things were satisfied, I switched up. And they didn't switch up with me. So now it's left like, well, I can't satisfy you. I can't give you what you want. And they were telling the truth. They were face value. And that's what my brother always tell me. Take these men at face value. They're honest with you from the very beginning.
That is, and I think that's good. You made a great point. Relationships need more than love, right? We, as women, we see all of these fairy tales, we watch these movies, and that's just not reality. You know, at the end of the day, I love you is not going to pay the bills. I love you is not going to comfort you when you're sick. If now you become somebody that they have to be a caregiver for, it has to be more than love for them to stay and want to do that, and vice versa. And so, and that goes again, knowing who you are, knowing exactly what you want, and not being afraid to communicate that. Regardless of what the response is going to be, what you want is what you want. What you need is what you need. Right? Now we do have to differentiate, what we need versus what we want, but we do consider both of them. Right? We have to consider both because they're both important. Because it makes us who we are. You know, it makes us the type of woman we are that's going to attract the type of man that we like, and vice versa, for men and that want women. So you have to know who you are. You have to know what you want. So I have absolutely love this conversation, you guys. It has been it's been a great ending to this series of Dear Single Woman Conversations. And so I will see if any of my guests want lasting remarks on this topic, or just in general, anything on relationships.
You know what I want to say, Shantae, when you were talking, you talked about that feeling of butterflies, right? You mentioned that, you get that butterfly feeling. And a lot of times when we get that butterfly feeling, we tend to think, oh, this is the one. But sometimes we got to consider that that's nothing more than a trigger, that there's something about this one that I need to move away from. And I don't need to be excited about like this. Like, let me really, allow these feelings to settle down.
To
What's so
die.
interesting about a lot of those relationships, right? They're built on lust. And once lust is fulfilled, it expires, right? Love is long, it's enduring, it stands the test of time. But what's interesting about lust, feelings of lust, that it really, they can last and they can hang around for up to 18 months. And so before we start making these decisions that I love him, and we start saving him as king and boo and all of these wonderful names in our phones, this is where we develop that premature attachment, because we're already calling them things and we're accepting those titles ourselves. And so it's, I think it's important that we ground ourselves in reality. You mentioned Disney. I got a thing about Disney. I can't stand Disney, but it promotes this love that is not real. And from the time that we're little girls, or from when we're little girls, we are somewhat groomed by Disney and by the toys that we play with to be a mom, to our dolls, and and we're going to live happily ever after once this prince comes and swoops us up and we go away. But Disney was, they were selling, they were making money off of that. But we don't live in fantasy. We live in the real world, and it works a little bit differently. And so, and then on the other spectrum of it, right, is like, oh, your Boaz is coming. Not everybody needs a Boaz, right? And Boaz already had his wife. But here's the thing. If you just on a surface level, when we make the two comparisons, right, when we begin to decide, well, what do I really need? And what am I looking for? Do you want that love from Disney? But Boaz represented a covenant redeemer. What are you looking for? And it's so important that before you get out there and start trying to mingle and trying to get involved with people. It's so important that you know what you're looking for. It's important that you have your list, right? Because I'm big on having a list. But the thing about this list is it shouldn't have these physical things. It shouldn't be on a superficial level, but like, listen, what type of person do you want? I'm a parent, right? So I would want somebody who is a family man, who would love my children like, they're his own. Like, we have to really sit down and think, what do I, like Stephanie talked about it, what is it that I truly need? And then write those things down, because then when you go out there and you're talking to this one and you're like, doesn't quite add up. And I'm not about to sit here and coach somebody at this ripe age of mine on how to be these things. No, let people be exactly who they are and keep it moving. And one of the things about trauma, right, it also induces this scarcity mindset that I got to hold on to this because that's the last one available. No, there are over 7 billion people on this earth. There is more than one person that you are going to find attractive and who will love and respect you. So that's what I'll leave with tonight. Thank you, Shantae. It was nice meeting you, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, that is good. That is good. Thank you, Joy. Uh, so, Stephanie, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or are you good?
Something just dropped in my spirit. Like I said, I have a hard time keeping my boundaries as well. But I just thought about, if we write down our boundaries and we keep them in a place where we can see them every single day, so we can remember those boundaries, then I think I may, or we may, all of us may do a better job at keeping those boundaries, because I have them set on my phone. I like to pray at 11, from 11 to 12. I stopped praying because I'm on the phone. So nope, once my alarm go off at 11, I'm praying. I'm getting to my word. So, and also, just to leave off, just as a final thought, if you don't know where to start when it comes to your purpose and learning yourself, identify yourself in Christ. I can say that is what has helped me kind of put the cherry on top to me learning myself as a woman and becoming a better mother and person in general. So I'm able to speak with authority and the confidence that I have because of this 1 year anniversary I'm coming up on of dedicating and surrendering my life to Christ in its entirety. And that's what I end on.
Yes, that's amazing. Congratulations on that. So, y'all, thank you so much for joining. We started out these series. We talked about skipping from friendship and going straight to ownership. Last week, we actually talked about those boundaries and how we don't set them and how we relax them. And then we're mad because they don't cross them. And it's like, but yo, you did stick to your old guns. And today we discussed dating from unhealed places. And so, what I really want to stress to women in general is, when you cannot heal a man, that is not your job. You do have to consider his pain, his past experience, his trauma. You have to take note of that, and you have to ask yourself, am I willing to walk through this healing process? Right? But you cannot be his healer. You can either aid in his healing or you can hinder his healing. That's up to you. You have to believe when people show you and tell you who they are, because they're telling you, whether it's verbally or silently, they're still telling you. And so we have to believe what we hear, what we see, what we don't see, what we don't hear, because it's still truth, whether we want to accept it or not. And when we know who we are at our core, we choose differently. We choose better. When you know your purpose in life, you realize anybody who is not in alignment with your purpose is not for you. You cannot date potential and call it purpose. I've made that mistake. You cannot date potential and call it purpose. Because guess what? We all have potential to be something, to do something, to achieve something. But guess what? We are who we are. Bottom line. Whether we want to accept it or not, we are who we are. And so I hope that you have enjoyed these Dear Single Woman conversation series. I have absolutely enjoyed myself and all of my guests. They have been absolutely amazing. And so I just want to thank you, ladies, for joining me in this. Again, as I said in the beginning, these series have been as part of my promotional for my upcoming book, Dear Single Woman. You can pre-order your copy now, and they will be ready to ship out the end of next month. So I'm so excited about that. I'll be finishing up my last edits to send back to my editor before the year is out so she can complete her portion, and then it's a wrap. So I'm excited. I'm super, super excited. So you guys go ahead and pre-order your copy today. I cannot wait. It has been long awaited, long overdue. But you know what? I realized I had to wait until I was healed in certain areas before I can write this book. And so I was frustrated with myself in the delay of this book. Like I started promoting this book like in 2017. Yeah. And it's 2023, it's 5 years. Right? 5 years.
Isn't that the number of grace?
Right. I couldn't even be mad, Joy. Like it was just like, okay, God, I hear you. Yeah. So it's all good. So I'm super excited, you guys. So again, thank you so much for joining. This is Shantae Williams, and I am signing off. This is then the conclusion of our Dear Single Woman series. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Joy. You guys have an amazing night.